You're listening to CaveRadioBroadcasting.com. The words and opinions you are about to hear are of the hosts and do not reflect the management of CaveRadioBroadcasting.com.
Good afternoon and welcome to Down the Rabbit Hole. Today is Thursday, May 5th, Cinco de Mayo.
Oh, it is Cinco de Mayo.
Yeah, happy Cinco de Mayo, guys. Where's the tequila?
Not here.
It's not a big day around.
No, we better keep Dave away from the tequila.
Yes.
But
For at least a
Cat's
couple
here to
days.
drive him home, so we're okay. You're listening to a Gen Pop Media production. My name's Howard. I'm joined by my good friends Dave and David. And our pal Kenny's running the board. How you guys doing today?
Pretty good. Fantastic.
Awesome. Kat, we enjoyed Kat so much last week. She decided not to leave. She's been sleeping on the couch for 7 days. And she's here in studio with us as well. How you doing, Kat?
Good. How are you?
Pretty awesome. Thanks. I'd be better if Dave would have brought tequila, though.
I'll bring it. In Chicago, Cinco de Mayo, it's a big day. There's cars driving around, flags hanging outside of them, horns going off. Yeah, I didn't even notice it here.
I was supposed to meet some friends at Las Palapas, and there was a boxing ring in the middle of the parking lot.
Really?
Along with...
No, they're having a wrestling thing.
Is that what
Yeah,
that was?
like luchador wrestling.
It
Oh,
was
any midgets?
weird.
No midgets.
I love
Just
midgets.
luchador, and then there's a guy that I know that's part of it. He has one leg and he wrestles.
Oh, Zach?
Yeah, Zach.
He is my son's idol. He came and spoke at my son's third grade class. And my son came out of school so excited. He's like, do you know who Zach Gowen is? I don't have a clue, dude. Who is he? And he explained his whole story. Very, very inspiring story. Good guy.
Are these like professionals on a worldwide level? Are they
He
like
was a
local?
professional.
Yeah, they're like amateur professional-ish.
Yeah.
You know,
Amateur professional-ish.
Well, like, I mean, they've been on the TV and they kind of retired from the TV and still wanting to wrestle.
They made it out of the backyard.
Yeah.
There's no YouTube videos of them in a backyard.
I think a one-legged wrestler could have an advantage.
Oh, he can whoop some
This
ass.
dude's pretty butch.
I've seen it.
Yeah, he's pretty butch. At least that's what our sponsors say. So I'd like to thank our sponsors, Elder Care. If your loved one needs extra care at home or in an assisted living facility, call the ladies at Elder Care. They'll bring peace back to your life. You can contact them through their website, eldercarecares.com, or by calling 734-671-6518. And inkonpaperprinting.com, your one-stop for affordable quality printing material. Business cards, event programs, posters, brochures, banners, from design to custom finishing, IOP has you covered. Contact them through their website or email sales at inkonpaperprinting.com.
If you're not sure, IOP stands for ink on paper. But you got to finish it out because it's actually inkonpaperprinting.com.
Right, just like...
Great domain name, by the way.
Yeah.
Trust me, I wanted a better one, but what can you do?
Inkonregularprinting.com is
And
taken.
I feel our audience is plenty intelligent enough to realize IOP is ink on paper.
Yeah, and it sounds weird if you say IOPP.
Right, because then they think you owe someone some urine.
Right.
And
My son would
it's
laugh.
never good to owe people urine. So we'll do our shout-outs, which is to our supporters and organizations we support, which is IamTheFaceOfTruth.com and Architects and Engineers, AE911, Truth.org, and to the original truther himself, Jesus Christ. Always remember, it's not down the conventional hall. As always, don't trust any one person so you don't carry someone else's mistake with you, especially ours. Do your own research because there are no more secrets, only ignorance. Okay, with that, I think it's time for Dave's Quotes of the Week.
Well, we also have a couple of corrections to make from, I guess this would be 2 weeks ago.
Oh, okay.
Because this was
Okay. Kat has a correction, too.
a remnant in my notes. What's your correction, Kat?
It's the first person who was on a milk carton, whoever he said.
Jonathan Gosh?
That's incorrect, I believe. I was just going to look it up.
All right, well, she looks that up.
It was Elsie. It was Elsie the cow.
Elsie
wasn't
the
it?
cow. You know, from that exact same case, I referred to a guy named Paul Bonacio. Well, actually, he's Paul Bonassi, apparently. And ironically, when I was listening to Russ Dizdar this week, he was talking about Paul Benassi because he'd filed a lawsuit, and one of the people named in it was Michael Aquino, who's now, I believe, a general in our military.
Yeah, that dude's really creepy.
He's just a flat out public Satanist.
He's the founder of the Temple of Set. That was a result of a schism from Anton LaVey and the Church of Satan. Scary. Eaton Patz was the first kid.
That name sounds familiar.
Yeah, he was the first one. Yep.
Hey, we should also say hi to Tony Schwartz. How's it going, buddy?
We got 2 thumbs up.
He's a radio star, and he's just nodding his head.
It's going great, guys.
Look at that. Listen to that voice. What have you been up to lately?
Staying busy, you know. FreedomWorks is doing very well, and each week I really love tuning into this show because you guys give me so much research material. I go and look at all the people you guys talk about, and next thing you know, I'm blown away and following all this guy's work, and the next guy you guys talk about, that's what I was just thinking when you said Russ Dizdar.
Have you looked into Russ at all?
No, that's going to be a new one for me. I know you've mentioned it before.
Guy's a stud.
Dizdar. What he did is just unbelievable. He was at a party in the 1970s, probably a lot like the people around here, have been at one time or another. Drunk, hippie, high, on 70s counter, whatever. This guy comes in and starts witnessing to him, and he basically freaks out, runs out of the party because he's so uncomfortable. But that actually begins a process where he ends up coming to God, and then he begins what he thought was his calling, which was sending literally these undercover Christian agents into a series of secret societies, covens, occultic groups, and that it kept expanding and expanding. And he came out, that was 30-some years ago, and he's put together an unbelievable intelligence profile of what this, let's call him a dark army. It's like it's hidden. It's just beneath the surface. And he estimates that we're looking at 50 to 100 million people that are, some of them don't even know they've been programmed to do some sort of future activity. But I hearken back to that theater example where the experimenters brought a bunch of people into the theater and they flashed some lights, and about a quarter of the people in the theater just went quiet. Mm-hmm. And if you've seen people hypnotized before, you can get someone to jump on one leg after hypnotizing for 5 minutes. What can you do with someone if you've got them for a few years? And these were his points, that there are the incredible amount of people that have been programmed with these alternative personalities through SRA, satanic ritual abuse, is off the charts. And when we see someone like the Virginia Tech shooter or the Denver shooter or any of these guys, more often than not, they are MK Ultra programmed assassins.
The one thing I always bring up is if you guys can remember back to the Batman shooter from Aurora.
Right.
Right after that, if you remember his apartment, and they said his apartment was ready to blow, and it had they showed all these magnificent set up booby traps and everything. And the neighbor came up and knocked on the door, and she almost opened the door, but she didn't. I mean, they had this room, and then they tore the whole room, the whole back of the apartment off to go in there, But it was this room that was set up, all this stuff, and they started talking about all the stuff you could buy online, all the weapons and all the ammo and all of that. But they showed this, elaborate house of all these major booby traps, and I'm like, why would he tell? If he's this elaborate and he's this, this smart, why does he look all spaced out and drugged out like he doesn't have any idea where he's at?
They all look that way when you think about it. What's a little creepy about the Denver shooter case, if are you familiar with the Illuminati card game?
I'm familiar with it, but not that I've ever played it or anything like that. I know it exists.
I forgot the guy's name. In 1994, he got a set of these Illuminati cards, and he started to duplicate them, write about them, photograph them. And it was the Secret Service that ultimately came in and shut him down, which, think about that, that's rather odd, but I do believe the Secret Service is the banking cartel, i.e. the head demonic folks around here. That's their little private Gestapo. Nonetheless, taken out of circulation, but the photographs and the evidence of it lives on. And you can go see what these cards were. This is 1994. Now, there was a picture of the Twin Towers being bombed. There was a picture of the Pentagon. And one of the cards was of, you'll have to Google the photograph, the picture on the card, but it was of the Denver shooter. It had an orange-haired shooter in front of the Denver light. You can see the theater as if it was a completely planned event 20 years in advance, which even in as far deep as we are into conspiracies, I still have a hard time believing that. Like, how did you know that the light array on that theater was going to be this pattern of horizontal lights that is reflected in this car? Maybe it's coincidence.
Yeah.
But there's no way the World Trade Center and the Pentagon bombing. I mean, at some point, you go from coincidence to this. Things
Something's
are planned.
up. Well, I just wanted to say, man, I really love the show. I love all the knowledge that you guys have. When you guys put it down in the timeline, what you were talking about from the Bible and all that, I love it because it gives me the opportunity to go and look at that stuff. And I always say it even on Freedom Works is go research the things that we're talking about. And I just like how you guys keep it together and get through the timeline. I know, my show, I'm all over the place. So it's pretty awesome, and I really enjoy the show, guys.
Thanks, man. That's awesome.
That's the first compliment on timeline keeping.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm just
I
going to
was-
accept it and be like,
Yeah,
awesome.
organized.
Yeah.
I never would call us organized.
We got it together.
That's Tony Schwartz. He's like the big dog DJ here at
Yeah.
Cave. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're kind of teacher's pet, huh?
I know. I'm
You do
impressed.
autographs, dude?
I love the show.
All right, man.
You signed
Thanks
my
for stopping
t-shirt?
by.
Thanks for stopping by, bud.
That's the, I looked that up because I'm curious. The Al Amarja card, 1995, Illuminati card game.
And it was called the El Amarja.
Al Amarja, which apparently is some religion. But it's is an imaginary island of secrets and conspiracies. Al Amarjans practice just about any religion, from Christian Science to human sacrifice. They include Satanists and Somerites, religiously oriented fans of rock star Carla Summers. No idea what that is, but
Wait, let's see the picture. Turn your screen.
it's actually an image of the theater
Yeah, that's the card.
where the shooting took place.
And you also saw the orange hair shooter. Was that the Joker that was in Batman? Another strange thing about that case is the woman that plays his defense attorney plays a witness to the Sandy Hook. Same woman. It's under crisis actors. And we're going to talk about that a
So
little
they
bit
have
today.
crisis attorneys now?
Well, she's just an actor. That role happened to play a lawyer.
Gotcha.
How did they get someone to do that? I don't know. But that woman is...
I think it's the promise of something much greater than what they could attain here.
I've seen her appear on a number of mainstream media programs, not even about necessarily Sandy Hook or the Denver shooting. But sometimes she's commenting on foreign affairs. Sometimes she has an accent. And I've noticed that, and if you pull up her picture, Dave, you'll see this. See you guys. Her initials, whenever she's playing a role, are always BS. And it could be Beverly Sutton. It could be, and again, I don't think those are accidents.
No
it's
way.
kind of like mocking us.
That's
in our
awesome.
face.
Cannot be accident.
In fact, it's so outrageous. It actually is one of the veils of protection that keep people from looking. Because it's just
Well, if you think that evil doesn't have a sense of humor, you're wrong. Because there's people with good senses of humor everywhere. And trust me, if I was working for evil, I'm working for good, and I'm cracking jokes all the time. If I was working for evil, I'd have that stuff out there, and I'd be dying. I'd be, can you believe we got away with that?
I know. But I don't think so. We don't have this impression, when Russ Dizdar talks about he calculates about 50 to 100 million. This is globally. These program killers. They don't all know this plan. Some of them don't even know they're even been programmed. Some of them are. But I did read today, because I've been reading, I want to say this was Isaiah, but it could have been.
Book of Isaiah.
I've
Always
been
go
in, I've
Book
been
of
in a
Isaiah.
few different places where the red horse specifically is people are slaying each other.
Right.
Like people killing. And so he suspects that that's what this dark army is going to do. And this dark army, that's my term. But they have a term for themselves. It was not Russ Dizdar's term, but when they go live, and some of them are like anticipating this. They're not all blanked out replicants in a sense. I mean, some of them are active and they know what they're doing and they're into it. But inside of their circles, it's called the Black Awakening. And he actually wrote a book called The Black Awakening.
Yeah.
Highly recommend.
I've seen that term used several times.
I know. What will you do when you're, well, if it's, I hope, because what happens when certain neighbors come over to your house ready to start shooting?
Well, if any neighbors come over to my house.
You're
I was gonna
suspicious
say-
already.
I was going to say, there's some neighbors I hope come over.
Like,
but
why are they here?
Yeah, no.
They never talk to me.
I'm convinced that the neighbors across the street are vampires because they only come out at night.
It could be.
I
Or
swear.
they could be in a metal band.
Or, yeah.
No, they're like old.
vampires.
Old people can't play metal? Metal's old.
True.
What do you guys think about vampires?
I don't know. I don't know. I know.
Well,
that
first of all,
the-
I think they don't twinkle, and I was completely offended by the entire Twilight series. Okay, as
well,
someone,
I'm offended that you actually watched it, but
my wife.
Oh,
That's
okay.
all I
Oh,
can say.
that's the only card you are-
you are-
outta
I've
here.
played the wife card. I'm officially back in the guy club.
you are forgiven. I don't know about the only thing that gives credibility to it to me is, and I forget who this was, but there was an explanation of the Amalekites. Is that right?
All of the Ite tribe. I think I know where you're going.
But there was one.
Amorites,
I think it was the Amalekites, and somebody had said that the actual original name, if you break down the meaning, because all these names in the Bible have meanings, including the people, right?
Yes.
There's
Yes.
roots and all. I don't understand the language part of it, but that it actually literally means vampire-like demon. That name. So there's maybe something to it. I don't know. Do they drink blood and sleep in coffins? No, I don't think. I think that's nonsense. But
well, vampires as we know them, maybe they don't exist. I don't know if they're creatures that can't be out in the sun, but there are legends that do ring of even modern day Satan. The drinking of the blood is a big thing. For some reason, there is something. There's something very important in our blood. That's where I think perhaps life really is in the blood. And what happened when
maybe that's the window. Maybe that's where you get to the soul.
possibly. I mean, you can see when a soul leaves somebody. In fact, when God was calling out for Abel,
I was
he
just gonna
said to
say,
Cain, his blood is screaming to me.
Crying out to me.
Crying out to me,
Reach
thanks.
that
And blood is an important part of all of these. Russ Dizdar will do a better job of
Yeah, and
explaining it.
how do we?
I mean, you're actually, if you look at even like food code, Old Testament stuff, blood from animals, you're actually supposed to bury it. Like, you're not supposed to eat it.
You could never eat an animal that was still alive, whose blood was live.
Yeah, the blood itself.
The
Like, you're
people
supposed
that-
to actually bury it. Like, it's a big problem, right? So there is something there. I'm not sure
Well,
if I
isn't
understand it.
Vlad the Impaler wasn't.
That's what they say.
Yeah,
the
that's
the
the
story,
vampire
yeah.
idea kind of is based on his
Right.
life because
Yeah.
of he would drink the blood of his enemies and impale them on stakes and all this kind of stuff. But what was the interview with the vampire?
Yeah.
Like that whole kind of vampire thing is based on Vlad the Impaler.
Just like
Transylvania.
like
That's
Castle
where it-
Dracula. It's called
Roman.
Bran Castle. They just do it for the tourists to catch their attention.
Gotcha.
Like,
Yeah.
Oh, this is Dracula's castle. Let's go visit it.
Yeah, and I think the root is like Dracul, which means
Yeah.
dragon
Yeah.
or something like
Yeah,
this.
dragon was his symbol and his sigil.
Right. Yeah.
Well, that's actually some of that has biblical origins because a lot of these tribes, the very tribes that God asked the Jews to wipe out completely, and that's one of the problems I used to have with the Bible is what kind of God is going to tell, Saul or King David, hey, go there and you wipe out, I mean everybody, women, children, obviously the men, and even the animals. And I used to have a problem with God because I'm like, what kind of God would
Yeah.
do that? However, it's interesting because the tribes that were not wiped out, where the Jewish Israelite soldiers didn't finish the job like they were supposed to, are the ones that are causing Israel problems to this day.
Yep.
And to speak about the Amalekites and several of the Ite tribes ending in Ite, which seem to have some sort of connection to the Nephilim, that is the
Right.
offspring of the mating of these fallen angels and human women, which is in Genesis 6, I believe.
Yeah, it is.
Legend has it, or the Bible it finishes off with these tribes being pushed north out of, and then they're not really referred to in the Bible anymore, certainly not in a current sense when the New Testament starts. However, you can pick the story up through history where these, at the time, nomadic people flocked to Eastern Europe because that was one of the few places they could be protected. And these were self-described. They didn't use the term Nephilim, but they described themselves as we're special type of offspring. We drink blood. They have a lot of the characteristics that modern day vampires have. And Eastern Europe is where we find Transylvania and all of the countries where they now supposedly emanate.
It's Romania, right? Transylvania
Yeah.
is not real.
Yeah, it's
Right,
Romanian.
but you know what I'm saying.
Well,
Not now.
we would just have to clear it
I
up
think
in our.
I'm just
But it was, though, was it not?
No.
There
There
is
is-
Transylvania
I
used to
thought
be a country.
No, there is a Transylvania in Romania.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's
that's-
not a
okay.
country. Yeah,
Okay.
It's in the Caucasus Mountains, I think.
And the more I've looked at, we were going to talk about media today, but the more I've looked at media, and let's talk about the entertainment Hollywood portion of it. There seems to be, in fact, I think the truth is hidden in science fiction, and there's a little grain of truth to most. I'm not saying all, and I'm not staking my reputation on this, but I suspect that a lot of the rumors we've thought throughout our lives to be just rumors actually, in fact, are more than that. And I'd love to find out the origins. We weren't planning on talking about vampires today, but how did we start talking about this?
I don't know.
Kenny brought it up.
Like myths and stuff.
It's Kenny's
always,
fault.
There's always a tangent to be had.
I know. All right, so do we correct our cases? Look up Paul Benassi, connected to the banking scandal, which I want to say was Nebraska, Kansas,
Nebraska, I believe.
which takes us all the way from Nebraska. It connects.
That's also called the Boys Town scandal.
Okay. It will connect child sacrifice, ritual abuse, presidents, and the Bohemian Grove, and the White House, and the banking families. Follow that case, look into it, and just see what your heart tells you about it. So that was it for my corrections. Any other corrections anyone wants to make?
No, I think we covered.
I just said the Caucasus
correction.
Mountains were in Romania.
Carpathian
And it's
Mountains?
it's the
Carpathian.
Carpathian.
Carpathian Mountain, that's right.
Let's check that right now.
Hey, you're supposed to wait till next week.
That's right. Now we've killed our segment for next
Oh,
week.
great. Now we're going to have to
correct
make
on
We'll
the
make more.
fly.
Don't worry.
I'll
We'll
just
make
make
more
more-
mistakes.
yeah.
We'll make more
Next
mistakes.
time.
Gandhi.
Gandhi.
So you guys wanted to talk about media, right?
Well, I was listening to the radio, and they brought up something in there was a survey conducted by Pew Research that shows that only 6% of Americans have faith that they're receiving accurate reporting from the media. Only 6% have any trust in mainstream media. And I mean, well, I have no trust in mainstream media myself. I thought, I'm like, wow, really? 94% of the people are off the reservation when it comes to mainstream media. So it started me, excuse me, it started me, kind of looking into that. And then that led to a bunch of other things. You know how research goes, and got me on the topic we're on today, which is distrust in media and why what has been done to the media that makes it so untrustworthy.
Well, there's a disconnect here somewhere for me, and I agree with that figure. I can see where an experiment would come out with the results of only 6% of people trust the media, because you can walk around anyone and they'll all say, "Oh yeah, the media is a bunch of BS. They're just a bunch of liars." But most of those people still go to get their information, which forms their ideas and their thoughts, from that very mainstream media. How many people,
Right.
and that I don't think is as little as 6%. Like, I will get my mom to admit Oh, yeah, of course the media lies, but she still turns on the news
Right.
every night
Right, and they'll
to
still
find out
and they'll
what
still
quote unquote is
they'll
going
still
on.
quote a mainstream media source where they're talking about the news with their buddies. Oh yeah, I heard on CNN. Blah 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 blah. You know,
Why do we do that as how does that? Why do we do that? Is it? I mean, as a race, as a humanity.
well, I think it's because we're used to it. I mean, you know, we grew up finding out what's going on from the TV. That's how we grew up. The newspapers, the television. I mean, it started with the newspapers.
Well, until recently, that was really that's all that was available.
Right. The only people offering opposing opinions were like your neighbors drinking beer in their garage with a tinfoil hat. I mean, there was no credible, respectable sounding people like the way we're able to get at them now through YouTube and through the internet, where you've got people who are credible professionals talking about something in their area of expertise and going, yeah, no, that's not the way it happened.
Yeah, and
So there was no way to substantiate it.
the other part of it too is people don't demand it. I mean, you know, I had lunch with a friend of mine today, and he said something that was funny. But then when I thought about it, the truth behind it was actually kind of sad. Is we were talking about our show about that we did with human trafficking, and I just mentioned the numbers, you know, the kids missing and all this stuff, and I said, you know, why is that not on the news? And he said, well, because man, there's a squirrel that can play piano. You know,
It's
there's
true,
there's
yeah.
a dog that can
Right.
ride a surfboard. You know, nobody goes out there and says, wait a minute, time out. You know, we want to know what's going on with this.
Right.
They force feed whatever.
But it's been,
you know,
it's been gradually happening since it probably started in the 70s. And, you know, back then they didn't have squirrels playing pianos on.
yeah, but there's always been propaganda.
Well, yeah, it's been propaganda,
you know,
but the news-
campaigns. I mean, back even before electricity.
But
You're
I
correct.
I think too, cable had a lot to do with this because I mean, think about it. Before cable, you had what 3 channels? I mean,
Right.
and then you had family night. There was even a law that programmers could not air adult themed, you know,
Right.
even just like a sitcom that we watched.
That was a big battle in the 70s.
Yeah.
I just saw
Exactly,
that
yeah.
documentary called
Yeah.
The 70s. I
Right.
didn't realize that battle was going on behind the scenes.
yeah.
Well,
yeah.
see
We
who
were
won.
just
We see who
watching,
won that
Love
one.
Boat.
Yeah. What would those people in the 70s think about anything on HBO now?
Yeah, and that's you know with the amount of households that cable is in now, which is probably almost every single one on some level. They have free reign, man. They can put whatever they want out there. Who's checking them?
And Howard, your poll it said 6%.
Yeah.
I looked at Gallup, and they say 57%.
Well, that's Gallup. I'm talking
I
about
know.
the Pew
Well,
Research, Paul.
And that's why, you know, when I'm laughing when I'm looking at Gallup because they're part of
Right.
they're part of the media.
Who owns
so-
Gallup?
Right.
Yeah.
But even that, it's 57%. It's not 95. It's not. And what was the 57%? Don't trust it.
Don't trust it.
Okay, so you know.
Well, so they're a little bit over medium, but you're thinking, okay, well, you know, almost as many people trust the media as don't, so it's all good.
Yeah.
What's up on
but-
Shopping Network?
But again, it's not half.
Well, in the
Equally,
article,
it's not. You know, I mean, so it's still.
the article that I read pointed out that was on the upswing too.
That more people are going to
More
trust
people,
it.
No, that more people
Oh.
are coming to distrust.
Distrust it, yeah.
the
Yeah,
media.
that's the only direction it could go in
I
because
believe
they've
that.
got a history of, and we're not talking journalistic mistake here and there. We're talking. You know, I've got some stuff I'm going to talk about later, but we're talking about completely fabricated, fictionalized
Yep.
stories presented as actual live news.
Yeah, and lies, just flat out lies.
Yeah, not exaggerations or half truths. We're talking
Yeah.
making things up. And like one of them was John Stockwell, who was an ex-CIA commander in the late 60s, 70s. And one of his jobs was to literally completely fabricate stories to get the American people upset with these militant groups. And they would literally make up these stories of how these militant groups went in and then they raided a weapons depot and then they raped the women of a town. So I mean, as an American's reading the story, they're outraged.
Oh, yeah.
But the whole thing was completely made up. It never happened.
Completely.
It just never happened. And
I remember there was
there's a lot of that.
There was a lot of that in South America when they were trying to move their chess pieces and get different countries on board with our democracy. I remember reading stories about the CIA talking about, the first thing we do is start planting stories in the newspaper and about the opposition or and then that's how we get our people into power.
You guys know my family's from Colombia. Half of them are, and one of my trips down there would have been about 1993, give or take, and we're flying in. And you guys remember the Medellin drug cartel and Pablo Escobar?
Yeah, of course.
And if I've told you this story before, forgive me. As we're flying in, the pilot announces over the intercom that Pablo Escobar had been shot that day. And that was the day, he was killed on a rooftop in Medellin trying to flee from police. And everyone on the airplane broke out clapping. And then they were happy that it happened. We land. This was in the very first days. It had only been 5 or so years prior when Colombia's trade barriers had been knocked down, and all of a sudden modern products and communication started entering the country, including cable. And so I don't know if it was CNN, but it was one of those cable news networks. And it was an American broadcast. I'm in Medellin watching it. And I'm in a high-rise downtown in Medellin, and it is quiet. Maybe every now and then there's some fireworks going off. And the news piece that ran, and I'm going to say CNN, but don't hold me to that. That could be our corrections the next week. It showed what the news article made it look like was that the whole country was in a massive rebellion/revolt because the police had killed their hero, Pablo Escobar. But all they did was film a little block of people that he did buy homes for who were upset and were crying. But it was about 50 people. And they tried to make it seem as if the entire nation was distraught over this. And I remember that I was only 20-nothing years old at the time, but that was the first time I was like, well, this is weird. That's not what's going on here. Like, I'm right here. That's not happening right now. But everyone back home is going to think that, I'm in some banana republic right now just trying to get to the store without an AK-47 around my shoulder. And it just wasn't like that. Now, of course, it makes sense.
Of course, yeah. Yeah, I ran into that in China when I lived there for, a year and a half, and it wasn't anything quite like that, but it was much more low-key than a drug cartel leader getting shot. But there was this really big market that was there, and they always were selling knockoff stuff. Nike, but it's not Nike. Adidas, but it's not Adidas. It's all like fake stuff. But you get it cheap. You go there and barter. It was really a kind of a cool thing. I mean, other than the fact that it was totally illegal.
It's Nick instead of Nike.
Yeah, I mean, it was exact copies, which of course,
Pumas with 2 M's.
Which of course, they're known for being very good at copying things, including human beings. That's a whole other topic. But
did you just bring up cloning?
Sorry, I can't help it.
That's because Orphan Black is coming back.
Sorry, I totally can't help it. But anyway, the point is that this market was a big place, and it was always full of people, and everyone, that was like an attraction. Everyone would go there, and it was, an outdoor street market thing. Well, they shut it down. They being, Chinese government comes in and shut it down. And at work, all the guys at work, were talking about it, and I caught wind of what they were saying, and they were saying that George Bush shut down the market. Our president at the time. I said, hold on, what did you just say? Right? Did you just say George Bush shut down the market? And they're like, yeah, that's what happened. George Bush, it's because of him. George Bush shut the market down. I said, you do realize that George Bush has no idea that this market is even here. Like, he doesn't care about your stupid market in the middle of the city. Like, that's what they were reporting in the news, is that blaming it on
the Chinese.
That's where
news
these
station.
guys all got it from, is that everyone was talking about it, that George Bush shut down this market. And I was like, that is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my life. It had nothing to do with our president. I mean, it was ridiculous. This is what they were led to believe. And, state-run media is a whole other animal, but that's what goes on there. They just report whatever they want them to know. Most of it's not real, and you end up with a misled population.
I don't know who owns the Chinese media. I do know that Al Jazeera is owned by the same media conglomerates that own our media here. You go put on Al Jazeera and they're saying, Americans are horrible and we're consumers and we're, we are the great Satan. Even Osama bin Laden, I believe, said that at one point. And then we go listen to our own news reports about the Middle East, and we're now forming these opinions that they're all wacko suicide bombers. And this angst is fabricated out of nothing.
Right.
North Korea is a good example. We've sent actually successfully a couple of journalist teams in there where they're going house to house interviewing the North Koreans. It's the most secluded nation in the world. And Kim Jong-il, or I think now it's his son, what's his name?
Kim Jong-un.
Well, so we immediately have this impression like, oh, this guy's a wacko, and he's got a nuclear weapon, and yada, yada. And you go, I'm sorry, but no one running a nation is a wacko. And I'm including Gaddafi and Saddam Hussein. If you actually talk to the people that were boots on the ground at that time, most of them said they're actually highly intelligent, charming, charismatic. They cared about the people. But the way they presented to us is so different. As they were going house to house in this little miniature North Korean subdivision, it's true the people there praised, at the time it was Kim Jong-il, I think the father, as a deity in a sense. But they also all had a common denominator hatred of the United States. And while they were there, the electricity went out. There's a film crew filming, and all of a sudden the power to the block goes out. And uniformly, everyone in the house, and there's more than one generation in a house, and often 2 or 3 families will share, some sort of a dwelling. All of them immediately start going, "Oh, those damn Americans!" And I don't know what was underneath it, but
did they blame Bush directly?
I never knew that the Chinese were like really a bunch of Democrats. Always Bush's fault. Did I say that out loud?
Well, they're
Yeah.
actually communists, which you could argue most Democrats.
Yeah,
they
isn't
are
that the
close
same
to
thing?
It's the lines are getting blurred, but
I mean, socialism and communism and Nazism, they're really all one theology. They all involve the government giving to the people. But of course, in order for that to work, the government must first take from the people before it can give back to the people. And that has been a big political /
it's just not the American way. People don't get that.
Well, it's becoming the American way.
No, I mean it is, but people aren't. There are. It happens in levels, and there are a lot of the level of people who want it to happen. They just haven't had their stuff taken yet, so they think it's brilliant.
well, it's the intersection of the incompetent and the incapable, and that's the mechanical failure of socialism.
Do you guys want to do a little quotes game today?
Yeah, absolutely.
Heck
Why
yeah.
not?
Kenny, do you want to play today? Come on, Kenny.
Oh, dude,
What, are you writing your term paper? He says yes.
is that crayon?
That was horrible. Totally not
Maybe
fair.
it's an art class.
Oh no, he's got a fine Cave radio pen from inkonpaperprinting.com.
They are the best pens.
They are.
I believe
they
in
are.
the history of the world.
Well, it's because we only have the best ink. So
Okay, I've got too many quotes to do here. Should I do media-related quotes, or should I go a little bit around the board? What do you guys up?
I don't know. I think that's fitting,
I like
or
media
not. I don't know. Whatever. Yeah, pick some. quotes.
We're open. It's your
Yeah.
game.
Okay.
We're inclusive.
Yeah. We're just contestants. Nobody has Bob Barker on The Price is Right.
So I'm a lot of this. So like I was saying off air, I had some cocktails Tuesday night, and I'm not a big drinker anymore. So I'm going public with this. And it used to take 5 hours to recover from a hangover. Remember when you're 22, 25 years old,
Barely,
you go out drink
yeah.
until 4 a.m. and you're at work the next day at 8:30 or 9, and you can make it. It's now 48-hour recovery period.
Dude,
48 hours.
Until I was 40 years old, the recovery time was the amount of time it took me to go to the local Coney Island and get some hash browns and breakfast down my throat.
Yeah,
And I
or
was
chili cheese fries. That was the ultimate
Oh,
cure.
yeah.
Okay. Let's start off with this one. Are we ready?
Ready?
Everyone's in but Kenny, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Good
No,
thing. Good
no,
thing
I don't
Pat
want anyone
came.
Googling any answers
Less
here.
competition. No, I'm stuck on this.
Dave,
page,
will you keep score on this one?
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. He's reaching his bag to get a trusty notepad. Okay, the quote is this. First quote. The business of the New York journalist is to distort the truth, to lie outright, to pervert, vilify, to fawn at the feet of mammon, and sell his country and race for his daily bread, or for what is about the same thing, his salary. You know this, and I know it. And what foolery to be toasting an quote-unquote independent press. We are tools and the vassals of rich men behind the scenes. We are jumping jacks. They pull the strings and we dance. Our time, our talents, our lives, our possibilities, all are the property of other men. We are intellectual prostitutes. All right. Does anyone want to come out and just guess who that was?
Whoever it was, they were angry.
Not a chance.
I will give a
Dennis
hint.
Miller.
Dennis Miller. Actually, not a bad guess.
That's a good guess.
That sounds
This was at a New York Press Club conference, and the guy that gave the speech had a few cocktails, and he was, let's just say, a little loose with his tongue. But I think he was right. You know, normally cocktails, I think, get you to reveal the truth, not make one up, but it affects different people differently. All right, so your choices are, that was Walter Cronkite, Arthur Schlesinger, Edward Bernays, he's the father of PR. Hang on one second here. Jonathan Hinton, or he was the editor of the New York Times, or Sir Joseph Stamp, the director of the Bank of England in 1940.
One more time.
I knew you were going to do that.
Sorry.
Cronkite, Schlesinger, Bernays, Hinton, or Stamp.
I'm going to go Bernays.
I'm going to say concrete.
Concrete.
Concrete. Did I say concrete? Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
Whose phone's buzzing?
That would be me. Also, I'm going to guess Walter.
All right, so we have two Cronks.
And a Bernays.
Would you guys be surprised if that speech was given in the 1880s?
No.
Well, I would be surprised if Cronkite gave it.
Yeah.
Did I say Hinton or Swinton?
I don't know.
Hinton.
You said Hinton.
All right, I meant Swinton.
Well,
Oh,
I would
that
have said
changed
changed
everything.
Then tell me who John Swinton was.
No idea.
He was
The
the,
guy
guy,
who
that
said
said what
that.
you just.
He was the guy.
Once again, our segment for next week, corrections, is being destroyed. It was Jonathan Swinton. He was an editor of the New York Times, and he was asked to give a toast to the quote-unquote independent press at a industry banquet that was in his honor. What else was interesting about this? It's also printed in his book, Labor's Untold Story. All right, 1880s, so just keep that one in mind. Goose eggs for everyone, yes?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Next quote.
I don't accept that. You gave us poor choices.
I did?
Yeah. You set us up to fail.
Well,
You know, okay.
It's all even.
Tell you
right?
what,
So-
give each of you
Yeah.
guys a point.
Really?
You
Okay.
guys all have a
Sweet.
point. Woohoo!
Socialism at work, right there, buddy.
can't get-
It means nothing.
I can't get a goose egg this week. And you know what? Give Ken a point just for participating.
Kenny, yes. Actually, I'm going to give him
Participation,
two.
Just because I went, ooh.
I'm going to give him two because it's not fair that he wasn't paying attention to the
Yeah,
question.
Kenny should get a
Absolutely.
point, too.
Yeah, so he's going to get 2 points.
Should we give one to Tony Schwartz? He was in earlier.
Tony Schwartz
He
gets-
would have gotten it
he
right
gets-
if I wouldn't have screwed
He
that
gets
up.
5 because it's extra unfair that he's not even here.
Right. That we did not
I
ask
mean,
him
that's
to
not
stay
right.
for this segment.
Of course. Well, that's not right. So
We'll have to,
2
we'll
for
have to
Kenny
rectify that next time.
and 5 for Tony Schwartz. Got it. All right. So Tony's schooling us right now.
Yeah, he's killing us. And there's only been 2
And
questions.
he's not even here.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Wow, that's how incredible Tony is.
But what was the name of the Nazi that came over and headed up our rocket program?
Oppenheimer.
No.
Guy started
Von Braun.
Von
Thank
Braun.
you.
That's right.
Yeah, Von Braun. What'd I say?
You said something else.
You said Hinton.
Swinton.
Wrong.
I meant Swinton.
Walter Cronkite.
Okay. Next quote. The real rulers in Washington are invisible and exercise power from behind the scenes. This was either Supreme Court Justice Earl Warren, Supreme Court Justice Felix Frankfurter, John F. Kennedy, Martin Luther King, or Kenny's favorite, Gandhi.
Challenging. I'll say JFK.
That's what I was going to say.
I'm going to go JFK.
All right.
Or you meant RFK? Just kidding.
Oh, shoot, I meant Jonathan Hinton. Son of a gun. I have
Jonathan-
too many quotes on here, so
Jonathan
I'm like going
Hinton
crazy.
Swinton.
What was the quote I gave you?
Oh, my.
Just find one with JFK and we'll get a point.
No, it had something to do with
People in
the real
Washington.
rulers
Yeah.
are hidden behind.
Yeah.
Okay, I need to do something different.
Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
This is what the reason I explained my Tuesday night was to, in advance, excuse for disorganization on this game because, believe it or not, drinking on Tuesday night affected my ability to prepare this thing today. The answer, not JFK. It was a Supreme Court justice. Anyone want to take another?
Frankfurter, right?
Hot dog?
Felix Frankfurter, U.S. Supreme Court
There
justice.
was really a Supreme Court
That's a
justice
tough-
named Frankfurter.
Tough.
Did he wear a corset?
I don't know, but they claim J. Edgar Hoover did.
We've all heard that one.
All right. Should we do an easy one or a hard one?
You pick?
Dealer's choice.
I've given this one before, so Dave and Howard should have a big advantage.
Don't count on it.
Okay, the quote is, "The media is the most powerful entity on earth. They have the power to make the innocent guilty and the guilty innocent. And that's power because they control the minds of the masses." This was either JFK, MLK, Malcolm X, Clinton, or Gandhi. The media is the most powerful entity on earth. They have the power to make the innocent guilty and the guilty innocent. And that's power because they control the minds of the masses.
OJ. Just kidding.
OJ, JFK, MLK, Malcolm X, Clinton, or Gandhi.
Bill Clinton.
Yeah, Bill Clinton.
That's what I was going to say.
You guys like aiming to tie or something?
I don't know.
It was actually Malcolm X. Unbelievable. We've done that one before.
Yeah, I just couldn't remember whether it was Bill Clinton or Malcolm X.
Next question. This is another one we've talked about.
Of course it is.
Men will believe anything unless it's written in the Bible. Jesus Christ, JFK, MLK, John who wrote Revelation, or Napoleon?
I'd say MLK, but it's probably Napoleon.
You want me to guess? Oh, Napoleon. Napoleon said that.
What's your second guess, Howard?
MLK.
It was Napoleon.
One.
Dave has pulled into a commanding lead.
I'm still way behind Tony, though. Tied with Kenny.
All right. Let's get something that is right up our little alley.
Yeah, could we get a quote from one of the guys in Pantera or something? I would know which Pantera member said that.
I can't give that quote because it's kind of given away. Here's a quote. 50 men have run America, and that's a high figure. Eisenhower, Reagan, John F. Kennedy, his father Joseph Kennedy, or Robert Kennedy?
Joseph Kennedy.
Joseph Kennedy.
What's your second guess, Howard?
RFK.
It was Joseph Kennedy, the father of John F. and Robert F., also the founder of the Merchandise Mart, which is the largest commercial building on the planet, or I should say in the world, in downtown Chicago. He had appeared in a 1936 New York Times article, July 26th, 1936 to be exact. Wonder what he could have been talking about. Next quote. There's another one we've touched on a little bit. The Central Intelligence Agency owns everyone of any significance in the major media. Hoover, J. Edgar, William Colby, head of the CIA, Eisenhower, John F. Kennedy, or George Bush?
William Colby.
Yeah, I'll go with that too.
I'll go with that.
You are all correct.
Nice. All right.
He, of course,
Yeah, I
as we
finally get
discussed-
one, and you guys gravy train me.
You gravy train me. All right. What decade was this quote given in? 5 minutes till break?
Mm-hmm.
Nothing can now be believed which is seen in a newspaper. Truth itself becomes suspicious by being put into that polluted vehicle. The real extent of this state of misinformation is known only to those who are in situations to confront facts within their knowledge with the lies of the day. I really look with commiseration over the great body of my fellow citizens who, reading newspapers, live and die in the belief that they have known something of what has been passing in the world in their time, whereas the accounts that they have read in newspapers are just as a true history of any other period of the world as the present, except that the real names of the day are affixed to their fables.
So
This was said by a president.
What decade?
I'll
Okay.
give you 4 minutes. Thank you. I'm going to give you 5 presidents, and it was one of them.
Oh, okay.
It was either said by George Bush, Jimmy Carter, Calvin Coolidge, Taft, or Thomas Jefferson.
Coolidge.
Howard's up. Oh,
Oh.
Coolidge?
Yep.
Jefferson.
Yeah, I picked Jefferson too.
Thomas Jefferson, in a letter to John Norville in 1807. See, I don't think we had a media that suddenly started to go wrong in our lifetime.
No.
It's always been,
Yeah.
meaning it's probably under the influence of some type of power that has been
Opposes.
around for longer than a few hundred
Yeah,
years.
that-
Yeah.
Who might that be?
Probably.
That may oppose good. Yeah.
Anyone who has the power to make you believe absurdities has the power to make you commit injustices. That was either Voltaire, Rousseau, Jesus Christ, Matthew, as in the book of Matthew, or Gandhi. Yeah, it's a good one.
It is a good one.
Yeah, yeah.
Gandhi.
Yeah, in honor of Kenny, I got to go Gandhi.
And I just don't want to be different, so I'll go along with that.
All right.
It was actually...
Voltaire, right?
Yep.
Ah.
That was Howard's second guess.
That was my first guess. Gandhi was my second guess.
French philosopher. I believe he wrote those words around 1740. Follow the theme. The theme has been constant throughout history, which leads me to the last question we'll do before the break. I know it's in here, but I'm not sure exactly where.
Tony's still kicking our butt, huh?
I'm tied with Tony right now.
Okay.
How much time do we have?
So you got to
Like
get
2
this
minutes?
wrong and I
Okay.
get it right.
Right.
All right.
The press is the hired agent of a moneyed system and set up for no other purpose than to tell lies where the interests are involved. One can trust nobody and nothing. That was either Aristotle, Voltaire, Henry Adams, one of our presidents, Woodrow Wilson, one of our presidents, or George Bush Jr.
Can you give me the quote again one more time, please?
The press is the hired agent of a moneyed system and set up for no other purpose than to tell lies where the interests are involved. One can trust nobody and nothing.
It's tough. Coolidge? Was that a choice?
I don't think so.
My God.
But I think Woodrow Wilson was.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah, go with Wilson.
I'll go with Wilson.
I'll say Voltaire just
Okay.
to be different.
Was he one of the choices?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
He was?
I think so.
Yeah, he was the second choice. Aristotle was the first. Henry Adams, president of the American Historical Association. Not, I'm sorry, his great-grandfather. And his great-grandfather and grandfather had been U.S. presidents. Thus, his political connections and access to informed views give weight to his own. The letters of Henry Adams. Do you guys want to do one more before the break?
Why not?
All right, we're talking about all this deception and lies. I'm going to pull one out of the Bible. I just want you guys to tell me what book it's in.
Fair enough.
And there's not going to be any multiple choice.
Okay.
Oh, you know what I'm going with.
Fair enough, yeah.
If I say that.
Now that we can control the weather, create Earth... I'm just kidding, that's not one.
That does not say that.
The Bible might not. And the devil who had deceived them was thrown into the lake of fire and sulfur where the beast and the false prophet were. And they will be tormented day and night forever and ever.
I know.
That's the outcome of the war, folks. Make sure you're on the right side. Where?
Oh, I know.
All right, Horseshack, what do you got?
Yeah.
Book of Revelation.
Yes.
That's where I was going.
What chapter?
Ooh. That's getting...
I think it's... Is it 22?
No.
Cat's close.
19?
You're a little closer. It's 2010.
Okay.
What was the first thing when Jesus Christ had the briefing on the Mount of Olives? Some people call it the Olivet Discourse.
Yes.
And there were 4, not all, but just his 4 close apostles with him.
Yeah.
And they asked, what will be the sign of your coming, Jesus, when you come back? What was the first thing he said?
Matthew 24. I should know this. I should absolutely have this memorized. I've read it so many times.
Anyone?
Is it
It's thematic with what we've been talking about.
the first thing he said?
Is it false prophets?
It's one of those wars, and
under
rumors
the-
of wars.
Those are the... So he goes through 7 descriptions of
Yeah.
what the world's going to be like in the days of Noah. But he said something to kick it off that almost didn't make any sense.
I don't know. It's been a while.
And now I'm hoping that I have this right.
You might.
Any guesses then?
I'm almost on Matthew 24.
Oh, he's looking it up. But
I believe let no one deceive you? Is that Matthew 24?
Matthew 24 is the destruction of the temple and sign is the end times.
well, that's but the Olivet prophecy, right? That's what you're talking about. That's later in Matthew 24.
All right, you want to take us to break?
Yeah.
Mr. HV.
We are going to take a break. So
Well done. Woo! Man.
don't try this at home, kids. I am a professional.
Yes, trained professional.
We'll be back. Well, welcome back. We paid some bills there. Kenny did his job, so we don't get him fired because we like Kenny. We want him to stay around. We are back. I got Dave, and Catherine in here with me and Kenny. I'm Howard. And welcome back to Down the Rabbit Hole. So we just got done with the... Dave, you want to give us a tally on the trivia game?
I won.
You beat Tony Schwartz?
I tied Tony.
Okay, I just want to say you're pretty pathetic because you tied a dude who isn't even here.
Well, again, this is the way, it's all...
But I'm more pathetic.
It's all in fairness.
'Cause
But
I'm-
you and Kat were tied.
Yeah, we were beat by a guy that wasn't here.
Yeah.
And I only got you by
But
2.
it's by Tony Schwartz, so, it's understanding.
yeah.
We can do a 5-point bonus question.
5-point bonus question? Let's do it.
Ooh, do it.
Here's the quote. You guys have to figure out who this is. I'm not going to give you choices.
Well, it's for 5 points, so we ought to, earn it.
I'll even give you some hints. This was from a speech given to the Trilateral Commission in June of 1991.
Okay.
All right? And here's the quote. We are grateful to the Washington Post, the New York Times, Time Magazine, and other great publications whose directors have attended our meetings and respected the promises of discretion for almost 40 years. It would have been impossible for us to develop our plan for the world if we had been subject to the bright lights of publicity during those years. But the world is now more sophisticated and prepared to march towards a world government. The supranational sovereignty of an intellectual elite and world bankers is surely preferable to the national autodetermination practiced in past centuries. And yes, he's a name we would all know.
Rupert Murdoch.
Good guess, but it's wrong. I'm just kidding. Well, I'm not kidding. It is wrong, but I didn't mean to go nuts on you.
I'm going to go...
But that was a good guess.
Bill Clinton.
I will go with George Bush Sr.
I'm going to guess David Rockefeller.
Ah,
And it was David Rockefeller.
yeah.
Oh, so Dave gets a point.
Should have guessed. Well, he gets 5 points.
No, so great. So Kat and I have been beaten by someone who knew the answer.
Ah, I see. So we're going to
Here's
distribute his points.
Here's
to-
one more bonus question for you. Related.
Yes, we should distribute his points among
It's
us.
redistribution of points.
Yeah.
Now, you guys, if you're really astute, you'll get this because I believe we've covered this guy, but not this particular quote. This one was given in 15 years prior, in 1976, by a congressman. He was speaking to Congress, by the way. This is not like in some conversation at a barbecue grill. This is a congressman speaking to Congress in 1976, and he would later be on flight KAL 007, which was shot down because it apparently had veered into Soviet airspace. But the quote is this, speaking of the Rockefellers, the drive of the Rockefellers and their allies is to create a one-world government combining supercapitalism and communism under the same tent, all under their control. Do I mean conspiracy? Yes, I do. I'm convinced there is such a plot, international in scope, generations old in planning, and incredibly evil in intent. 15 years before the head of the Rockefeller family, David Rockefeller, essentially as much admitted that that was a true conspiracy. So we're looking for the name of a congressman. I'll be impressed if you guys get this, but any...
If you gave me multiple choice, I'd get it.
Yeah, I can't.
I remember this.
I
this,
can't do congressman for the 70s.
Yeah, I couldn't even name one congressman today, so it's a lousy question. I'll just give you the answer. It was Congressman Larry McDonald. One of the first guys that started to come out saying, hey, this thing is real, folks. Back then, they were killing people. Now they just...
They don't need to.
We're drowned out by
now they don't need to.
white noise.
No, they've made us stupid.
I could go on with these if you want me to. Or we can... Howard, your call. What do you want to do?
Dude, I am open to anything.
Anything?
Pretty much.
Sorry, can't help it.
Pretty much.
Well, okay, we're talking about the media, right?
Mm-hmm.
So And we're talking about how it's controlled by. I read today that it's controlled by basically 6 corporations. Right?
Yes.
And something I was thinking about when thinking about all this stuff, I guess I never thought about it before, but advertisers probably have a lot of influence over media content.
They always have.
And so then I started thinking about what companies, really advertise a whole lot. The drug companies, the pharmaceutical companies, So it's interesting.
Yeah, a lot of, if you listen to the defectors out of the Illuminati, which is a broad term for a lot of these secret societies, it encompasses a lot. But the ownership of most of the Fortune 2000, you just don't become a Fortune 2000 company or become an owner of it unless you have this is not in all cases, of course. But I suspect you're right that the companies like Pepsi and Coca-Cola for sure, Procter & Gamble. In fact, there was Procter & Gamble advertises, I think at one time they had more advertising than anybody. In fact, the term soap opera came because of Procter & Gamble producing shows to sell soap. And you guys remember the Procter & Gamble logo? We would have been kids in the early 80s and went through, there was a whole bunch of controversy around it because it was a demonic logo. Does this sound familiar to you guys?
No.
No.
Well, someone Google something, because there was a pagan god in it with 13 stars, I want to say, and a Christian group was going nuts saying that.
What logo was it?
P&G.
Procter and Gamble. Procter and Gamble. And they provide products like from Tide to. I mean, they own half of the stuff in our homes.
Oh yeah, all
The
kinds
supplies,
of
I should
all kinds
say.
of junk food, and they do all kinds of stuff.
So, Kat, you were right about one thing while Dave looks that up. I was looking at a graph I'd saved. In 1983, and if you were combining newspaper, radio, and television, there were over 50 corporations that owned the majority of media. In fact, the FCC, one of the organizing principles of the FCC, Federal Communications Commission, was to keep media ownership from being centralized. And there used to be a lot of rules around this. Even in my early career, you couldn't own more than 8 media properties in a given city. Yeah. That's why CBS Broadcasting, we did a lot of business with them. They owned 8 radio stations in every city, couldn't own more. Now, those rules are long gone through Infinity and Clear Channel.
Yeah.
You've got them controlling essentially the vast majority of audio, air-only programming.
866 radio stations they own.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
So from 1983, we go from 50. I think we bottomed out in 2004 at 5. And Catherine, I think you're right that there are now 5 or 6 companies that control everything.
Right.
And like I've said before, we've all been, a lot of us have been the CEO of a company in here. You can control the day-to-day activities of people that never hear your voice when you have control at the top.
That's so true.
And so we've got ABC, Disney, CBS, Viacom, Time Warner, CNN, NBC, MSNBC, Fox. And one of the heads of those networks, Ted Turner, who some people theorize he is the money and the person behind the Georgia Guidestones, CNN, Atlanta, Georgia. Mm-hmm. Because not is it just written in stone that ideally the population of the world should be 500 million. And if you realize that we are about 7 billion now, you're looking at about a 93 to 94% depopulation of the planet. That means just about 9 out of every 10 people in their ideal world.
That's the exact number that don't trust the media, according to Pew.
Interesting. And
and
that is.
And Ted Turner has a problem with it.
Huh. I'm sure it's a coincidence.
He's actually spoken about that out loud. And here's a guy that is in charge of one of the most influential thought-forming organizations in the world.
Yeah, well, it's not coincidence also that I think Bill Gates also actually has given speeches about ways to creatively given speeches about ways to depopulate the planet as well.
Scary.
Yeah, well, it's one of the companies that owns the internet.
So, and this for me, and I get to throw out my favorite term, which Howard loves.
Oh, here it comes.
Hegelian dialectic. Because we believe, I mean, we get on cable and we see, 500 channels? But if you follow, they're not all like this. There are some independent news networks. There are some independent media networks for sure.
There's some really good stuff that's streaming now that's coming with smart televisions, and you can get them over the internet. So as you get on the stream, there's a lot of great alternative.
Like Down the Rabbit Hole.
Yeah.
Well, I had always been under this impression, which, naively now, there are so many choices. You're just like someone's covering something. Everything is covered everywhere. Did you guys ever have that impression when you think of all the news choices we have? How can there be any secrets? There are so many journalists out there reporting that, I mean, everything would eventually come to light. But when you realize that they're really all controlled by about 5 companies. And, I mean, I'm talking they control MTV, Sundance, HBO, the History Channel, Nickelodeon. I mean, they start talking to our children before we do. ESPN, Telemundo, Time Magazine, New York Times, satellite providers. And that's scary if these guys have a esoteric agenda behind the scenes. In fact, one example, and I got this from Chuck Missler, he pointed it out. Someone that I highly recommend listeners look up and listen to a few of his presentations. So you guys remember the Phoenix Lights?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Happened in March of 1997. And there were some 20,000 people that witnessed these slow-flying lights over the city of Phoenix, including the governor of Arizona.
That was that long ago?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Almost 20 years.
We're old.
So that was in March. That was March 13th of 1997. And this was something that Chuck Missler pointed out, demonstrating how well manipulated and organized the mainstream media is. The story had so many teeth that local stations were sending their news vans, and there were parking lots filled with hundreds of vans covering the story, but you never saw it picked up in the mainstream news. The local affiliates were saying, hey guys, why isn't National not talking about this? This is a real spaceship sighting we have here, and we've got these governors and doctors and engineers. I mean, this isn't tinfoil hat guys. And you'd think if the media were independent and they really are competing to crack a story,
You think someone would get it out there?
Mm-hmm.
what happened is finally on June, I believe it was June 5th, maybe it was June 6th, but on the exact same day, USA Today, New York Times, and the 3 major television networks at the time, ABC, NBC, CBS, came out with the story on the same day in a coordinated fashion. Like, that just shouldn't have. And they did it 3 months after the event. Think about that.
No, they probably took the time to figure out exactly how they were going to spin it.
That's just a coincidence.
So, at one time I was looking into lights over city. There have been lights videotaped over every major city in the world, from Berlin to Moscow to New York, Mexico City, spanning all continents. What do you guys think that is? I mean, I think you guys know what that is, but how does that information not? It's like you say it to someone and it bounces off. If it's like it's almost like, whatever. Who's on Dancing with the Stars tonight?
Yeah, man, there's a squirrel that can play piano. Check it out. This cat dances like Michael Jackson.
One of the quotes that I didn't do tonight was someone talking about how this was from the 40s or 50s. They said that the population within the next 100 years, or maybe even 50 years, would be in a type of a trance. Like it's like they won't care about these things. Not like the last generation that was truly an activist generation, which I would say would be the 70s Vietnam anti-war movement. Since then, there really has not been. Although the Occupy movement definitely was something, the media certainly never made it seem that way, and I have no idea what the Occupy movement is doing today. I don't think they're dead, but do you guys buy that they might be slipping things into our food, into our water, into our medicines that are indoctrinating us with this laissez-faire, who cares attitude or do they just not believe it could ever really happen to the United States? Or how do you guys explain that, like psychologically?
I don't know. There's a reason why, I always go back to the Bible for stuff.
Yeah.
And why is it always in almost a repetition over and over and over, warning us not to be deceived. Do not be deceived. Do not let anyone deceive you. Do not, So there's obviously some concern that we're going to be. Maybe it's that it's going to be easier to deceive us at this time, and why is that warning keep coming up?
I don't think they're controlling us with drugs they're slipping in our food or chemtrails or anything like that. I think that really it stems from our fixation with watching the little images on the idiot box. I think they found the best way to control us, and it's because, how do you entertain your kid when they're, when you're just trying to get something done and you got a 3-year-old running around the house? How do you entertain your kid? You park them in front of Disney. We all grew up watching television. I'm personally addicted to it.
Well, there may be something to it, though, but and compile that with ADD medication, antidepressants, and other things.
Well, maybe, but
it's maybe
but
a
not all of us
complete
are
system,
on it,
right? Not all of us.
No, but I hear you.
An amazing amount are.
Yes.
I think the answer is in 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 3 through 4. It says, if the good news we preach is hidden behind a veil, it is hidden only from people who are perishing. Satan, who is the god of this world, has blinded the minds of those who don't believe. They are unable to see the glorious light of the good news. They don't understand this message about the glory of Christ, who is the exact likeness of God.
There you go.
Nice. There you go.
That's
and I was gonna mention in Matthew, there's I'm not gonna be able to pull up a verse like Kat did, but in Matthew when they talk about worrying, remember that verse Rob sent us on worrying?
That's right. Yeah.
Just before or just after that, they literally say in Matthew, do not become, don't get caught up in human things, the things that you feel are important. Do the things that God wants you to do. And, the 80s, which were the me generation, we got completely fixated on what we want to do, what entertains us, what feels good, what are we going to do? It's all about me, 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 me. My parents spanked me, so, how do I feel?
Right.
And, so we're so used to being selfish and self-centered that's how they've got us.
Yeah, I have a friend who's going through a divorce because his wife said that she needed to, that her friends had convinced her that she needed to focus on herself and her own happiness for a while.
Yeah.
Your Bible verse is Matthew 6, verse 25, I believe.
Okay.
Therefore I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat or drink, or about your body, what you will wear. Is not life more than food, and the body more than clothes? Look at the birds of the air. They do not sow or reap or store away in barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not much more valuable than they? Can any one of you, by worrying, add a single hour to your life?
That is one of my favorites.
Yeah.
That's in Matthew, right?
That's Matthew 6, verse 25, yeah.
Do you guys put any stock into apparitions, like the Fatima apparitions or the Lady of the Roses apparitions, or Do you think any of those are they A, all hoaxes, B, some real, which then implies the sub-question, are they good or evil, or are they both?
Well, it's like the Fatima prophecies, or whatever it's actually called, is really fascinating to me, and the reason why is because of the alleged cover-up that surrounded that, and how it was sealed up, and no one is to, people have allegedly been murdered over that.
Yeah, like go look up Father Malachi Martin.
Yeah,
who
so
had been privy to the third secret of Fatima, which is not, he claims, it's not what we believe it to really be. But a lot of insiders talk about will be the apparition, the appearance of a new heavenly body, like a new planet. Some call it Planet X or Nibiru.
Yeah.
And if you actually, unless these are all hoaxes, you go look on YouTube, just look up Nibiru. You can see there is something else, it seems. Again, I haven't vetted this, so don't quote me on it. But there's something else in our sky that's pretty big. It's about as big as the sun, and near what are supposedly the poles, these can be seen. And it's getting closer and closer and closer. And this is what the Vatican telescope, nicknamed Lucifer, was built to monitor.
Is that not ridiculous to you? That's what they named that thing?
Yeah. Of all
Is
organizations.
that like common
Of all
knowledge?
names.
No,
Yeah.
no one knows this stuff.
I mean, call it.
I mean, you can look it up. It's not hidden, but you'll never hear Anderson Cooper talking about it.
It's just, to me, it seems so utterly ridiculous.
Cooper.
Well,
Anyway,
so I've wondered about apparitions because Satan can also disguise himself as an angel of light, and I'm not sure what to make of them. The fruit of a lot of these apparitions has brought many people to Jesus Christ. So if it is a hoax or if it is a demonic trick of some sort, I don't see how it's...
Well, there's... Go ahead.
I guess it depends on how you feel about people being brought to the Catholic Church. Because most of those apparitions that you're talking about, like of the Virgin Mary, those people end up becoming Catholics, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, depends on...
And that was kind of the point I was going to make without singling out any particular religious organization.
Catholics.
Is
that's
that...
okay. I was going to anyway.
Yeah.
Catholics. No.
Now, how many of us in this room were raised Catholic? I know I was.
Yeah, I was
Kenny was.
kinda
Catholic.
sorta.
So most of us were
Went to
raised
Catholic
Catholic.
school.
Yeah, kind of.
Are you,
Even
Kenny,
though
are
I
you
know
still...
it doesn't make a difference that I was always growing up on Roman Catholic, which is like one of the oldest Catholics out there.
Right.
Yeah.
Like in
more
my Sunday
strict.
church,
Are
they
you
still
still-
do Latin?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Oh.
Yeah, you can't understand.
I've
what
been
you're
to Latin
saying.
Mass.
Like
Yeah.
the whole in
Latin
Padre
Mass is
Filii
awesome.
Spiritus Sancti,
Yeah.
you know. That's,
Are you religious in any way today? Do you still go to Catholic church?
I attend church here and there, like Easter or Christmas, once if I can.
Yeah, that's about the level of my Catholicism for the last 30 years.
But like ever since my grandmother passed, my grandmother was really religious. Summertime, every Friday, 3 hours of catechism. Good Friday, couldn't watch TV or play or anything for 3 hours except do catechism on Good Friday. Went to Ash Wednesday. Every Sunday we did Mass. She had a tape of it, even though she couldn't, physically walk there. But, we progressed on me and my family going. And then after my grandmother passed, it was kind of hard because, working constantly and stuff.
Right.
But
So, speaking of these apparitions, we didn't get to do this as a quote, but I'll just give it to you now. This was recorded on December 7th, 1976, and it was Our Lady of the Roses. Now, I want to say this one was in the East Coast of the United States. I want to say possibly Brooklyn. It's one of those, a lot of these apparitions have thousands upon thousands of people there. Then right afterward, there's all these debates about whether it was a hoax or real, and some people were touched, some didn't see it at all. The controversy is incredible, but some of them were apparently recorded. And this was I've got a few of these, but this one was from December 7th, 1976. This is supposedly Mother Mary, the mother of Jesus Christ, talking. Now, I don't know. I'm not going to go into the. I don't have an opinion on whether this was real or not, but this was what was recorded. This I've witnessed myself. I've seen it, read it. She says, apparently, I give you great grace of heart, my children, to know that many shall be taken from your earth before the great chastisement. I suspect that's talking about the tribulation and the rapture. Many of your news media shall state that they have been carried out by flying saucers. Oh no, my children. They were carried off into a supernatural realm of the eternal Father to await the return of my Son upon earth. So that, if that is demonic, it is kind of giving away the ace in their hand, which is this coming deception, which is going to involve, EBEs, extra biological entities, or whatever you want to call them. And I personally believe that is the big deception that's coming, is that we're going to be tricked into thinking we've been visited by something from, another galaxy, when actually we're just being visited by something that's kind of already been here always, but just repackaged to look like. And that's the kind of thing that could help when all of these guys from Rockefeller to Kissinger are talking about we're going to get the world into a one-world government, one-world religion. Unless somehow Islam fights a world war and wins, or Christianity fights a world war and wins, or
it's going to have to be something different, because we're
going to have to all realize we're wrong.
We're never going to agree
right.
with them. Yeah, it's going to have to be a new religion.
And don't you guys think that what is it called, the Unification Church? Isn't that kind of moving towards that, because they accept all faiths? And is that or the Universal Church?
It sounds like a New Age operation.
Yeah,
I'm not too familiar with it, but that whole New Age thinking.
It's the Universal Church, and they're popping up all over the United States, and they welcome. They believe in God, but they welcome people from all faiths who have, a God as their, central figure to their faith. So, I see that as being perhaps maybe the start of, everybody join together, all roads lead to heaven kind of thinking. That's what this church is.
It sounds very liberal.
It is.
Yeah.
Here's another quote that was recorded by that apparition, which lasted something like 3 or 4 weeks. Now, this one was from... Now, in my notes here, I've got December 24th of 1973. Before, I'd said 1976. And this set of apparitions was also known as the Bayside apparitions, if anyone wants to look that up. And in this entity claiming to be the mother of Jesus Christ said this: in this final battle, there are many agents of hell loosed upon earth. They are traveling in transports. Do not be won over to a false theory of life beyond the heavens other than the kingdom of God. Know that it is Satan who sends these vehicles before you. They are to confuse and confound you. These objects that take flight across your earth are from hell. They are only the false miracles of your times. Recognize them, my children. They are not a figment of man's imagination. They are present in your atmosphere, and they will become more dominant as the fight goes on for souls.
Wow.
Recorded in, I don't know if 73 or 76. But it's interesting that, personally, on a personal level, I found that long after, not even using that as a source, because I really didn't put much stock in those sorts of things, but just listening to general after general, after admiral, after defense contractor, after pilot, air traffic controller, even presidents saying, hey, I've seen them, they're real, it's happening. And this was a warning before, it was 20 years before the Phoenix Lights happened, 25 years before the Phoenix Lights. And it's not the biggest story on our mainstream news. It should be, I would think, if nothing else, to debunk it.
I got something good on the the Bayside apparitions.
What'd you get?
This was in 1979.
Maybe they had a lot of apparitions there.
It looks like they're from all different times.
Okay.
And you're going to like this one. Basically, it's the title is Bayside Teaches That There Are Other Faiths in Heaven. And the apparition said, "Do not judge your brothers and sisters who have not been converted. For my Father's house, my son has repeated over and over, remember always that in my Father's house there are many rooms in the mansion," signifying faiths and creeds as opposed to levels.
Okay.
Right.
I mean, I find it to be an interesting.
Yeah.
I bring
Well,
it
that
up
sounds-
because Dave's always got
Yeah.
the many rooms thing. So
Now it sounds demonic to me. 'Cause that is
Absolutely.
how Satan operates. Is
Yeah.
He doesn't just give you black and white lies. He throws in so much truth that you want to believe
yeah,
the source.
just enough
Yeah.
truth, and then just
And that little codicil that you just
Yeah.
added, which saying doesn't matter what faith you are. See, that is not biblical. Like there's
No.
only one way to heaven, and that is Jesus Christ. You have to have faith in Jesus Christ. You have
Right.
to- there are certain things you need to believe, and that's all it's about. Is where you stand, where your
and
belief.
how many times in the Bible is it repeated how simple the way to heaven is? It's so simple. You just have to believe that Christ is the Son of God. It's just that simple. But in being human beings, we want to make everything complex. It's like something as huge as where you're going to spend eternity. I mean, look at the amount of effort we put into a car we're going to drive for 2 years,
Or
okay?
into our retirement from
Yeah,
our work.
yeah, where we're going to retire. So we're talking about eternity here. It can't be that simple. It's got to be more complicated. So you have to look in and try to complicate it. But in the Bible, it's repeated over and over again that it's very simple.
Well, it is simple, but we're dealing with so much white noise. I mean,
Yeah.
it's simple once you believe there's a heaven and a hell, but getting to believe that is not simple anymore. And I think we're all examples of what, 3 of us in here were raised Catholic, and I went 20 years without really God in my life until something else happened
Yeah.
that pulled me in. And had that not happened, I'm
Well,
just an
God was in
example.
your life because it was 35 years for me between when I left the church and when I joined a church. It was 34 and a half maybe, okay? And what I realized upon joining a church and finding my way was that God was always in my life. He was nudging me. I just wasn't listening, or I wasn't ready, or wasn't recognizing, or it took that long for me to be able to look back and link events of 35 years and go, wow, I'm a moron.
Yeah, in retrospect, I'm with you. You realize, oh my gosh, they've been trying to get
Yeah.
my attention for a long time. And all these little things you remember that seem like random memories, all of a sudden you see they're thematic.
Yeah.
And they were all like,
And I've mentioned that several times to my pastor, who I talk to a lot, great guy. And his answer is always the same. It's always like, "Hey, it happened exactly when God wanted it to happen. You needed to experience
Amen.
that time away from God to appreciate your time with Him."
so is there freedom of choice?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah, you can choose.
It's all about free will.
You can choose. I mean, there's 2 choices.
Is the outcome already known, though?
What do you mean?
The outcome of humanity, your personal outcome. Is it already known?
Oh, you're talking about like predestination
Right.
theory? I don't believe that. I believe there's always
I
a
believe
choice.
we have a role. Yeah, I believe we have a role that that we have to, that the choice we make will determine our outcome. I think it's evolving.
What were you going to say, Kat?
I picture like okay, picture a house and a door, and above the door it says, enter, and you make a choice to open up the door and enter in. And then I picture like another room saying, welcome. I knew that you were going to make that choice. Do you see? And
Well,
that's where
yeah.
all like the predestination verses in the Bible, because it really does talk about predestination.
Yeah.
So I think that we were given a choice, but I think God knew
Yeah, of course.
the choice we
It's-
were going to make.
Yeah, that's true. I guess what the predestination theory that I was referring to is where the people that are saved are already chosen.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, some people are just doomed. So there's
Right.
people that
Oh,
believe
I see.
this
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
that from birth.
Calvinist.
There's
right?
nothing
Yeah.
that you can do about it. Well, I think you can go to say like Jehovah's Witnesses or Mormons or other groups that if you're not part of their little, well,
Right, like
I'll be
Jehovah- I
nice,
mean,
their church, then you are going to burn. Like they are the only ones that are going to be saved.
Right. Basically, they're saying you're saved by denomination, which I just
yes, they're
I
the
don't-
they are actually the church resurrected, right? So that is not obviously not true. Now, does God know where everyone's going to end up? Of course, He knows this, right? But I think that to be damned by birth, I don't believe.
I don't
I
believe
don't.
No, I
believe
don't.
this.
I don't believe that either.
Yeah, I don't believe this.
Because God does love everyone. God doesn't want to see anybody go to hell. Not one person.
right.
He really doesn't.
I've seen testimonies from people that are coming out of demonic generational families that they've been drinking blood and doing all these things. I agree with you guys. I don't think there's anyone that is unsavable save for the fallen angels and Satan, who God said they have zero chance.
Right, but they're not human.
Right.
Correct. And also the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim, apparently. So if you go to the book of Enoch...
But again, they're not human.
Yeah. Demons.
Correct. They're human-esque.
Right.
with-
They may be hybrids, but
some people had argued that it wasn't very godly to bar them from heaven. If you look at Enoch, or maybe it's the book of Jasher, I'm not sure, there were, according to those books, were about 500,000 of these Nephilim prior to the flood, 500,000 of them, which are the disembodied spirits, which essentially those are the types of demons that need to find a human host. Right. And we're talking, assuming that the spiritual world exists, which, I'm beyond assumption now. I completely believe it. There are many levels and ranks of creatures that are in that kingdom. It's not just one type of demon and they're all the same. There are, I think we're heading into what's going to be a multi-faceted attack. In fact, here's another little clue about it. This was from Lynn Cato, United States General Publishing Office. This was a 1969 report prepared for the Air Force. In fact, if you guys want to look it up, look up AFOSR Project Order 67-0002 and 68-0003. Government document, 1969. She concludes this. A large part of the available UFO literature is closely linked with mysticism and the metaphysical. It deals with subjects like mental telepathy, automatic writing, and invisible entities, as well as phenomena like poltergeist, manifestation, and quote-unquote possession. Many of the UFO reports now being published in the popular press recount alleged incidents that are strikingly similar to demonic possession and psychic phenomenon. That's our government talking in 1969. Actually, I think the people that have been trying to out this big secret have been doing it all along.
yeah, they've been trying all along. It's just that at one point it was too fantastic, and now we're too desensitized. We're just too tuned out to listen.
there is another quote I'm looking for, and it was the onset of this alien idea. Here it is. Okay, this was from John Dewey, and he was considered, I guess, the father of public education. He was a minion of the J.P. Morgan dynasty, which took over the American education system about 1905.
There were a lot.
And started teaching this, ridiculous history. 1 minute. So John Dewey, 1917, this is a speech at Columbia University, said, someone remarked that the best way to unite all the nations on this globe would be an attack from some other planet. In the face of such an alien enemy, people would respond with a sense of unity of interest and purpose. And I think that was the beginnings of this ultimate end times deception when it just began to manifest in our modern day culture. We think of 1917 as a long time ago, but it's not. That is the last days. I mean, that 99 years ago at this point. That's nothing in the grand scheme of time.
In the grand scheme of things. Well, that's all we got time for today.
Why don't you close us out?
Sure, okay.
Now, folks, you listen. This is how it's done professionally. Howard, take it away.
See you guys. No.
Good night, everybody.